Hello everyone, welcome to another video. In the last video we saw how we could link up Django with Next.js. Now in this video what I'm going to show you to do is how we can deploy our Next.js application, our Django Next.js application to Heroku, and also set up automatic deploys. Now so that when we commit our code to GitHub, every commit that we do to the main branch, it will be automatically updated inside our Heroku application. So inside here I have two applications are running. One of them is the Django application. Inside the auto-dep we have the settings.py file, typical, and we have our urls.py file. Inside our settings.py file we have the added static root, static URL, MIDI root, and the MIDI URL. And also I'm setting this static file storage to use white noise storage compressed manifest static file storage, which is a cool package. You should check it out. Inside our settings, I've also set the way, or I've also catered for rendering out our media files and our static files. Nice and beautiful. So what you're going to do is make some changes inside our WSGI file, and of course we can leave it as it is, but if you're using white noise you can also do some tweaking here and there, but we're going to leave it as it is. Now before we start deploying our application to Heroku and also setting up the automatic deploys, there are three Heroku specific files that should be present in your application before you can set up that application as well. Now one of those files is the proc file. So let's go ahead and create that file. So one of them is the proc file, and inside there we are going to declare the web process, and we'll use JUnicorn. So JUnicorn to serve that web traffic auto-dep. Then we'll give the complete path to our WSGI file, which is inside the auto-dep folder, then .wsgi, which is nice and beautiful. Then at the end there we tag on --log, then -file space, then dash, which is nice. Make sure that this is JUnicorn. Another Heroku specific file that we'll need is the runtime.txt file. So runtime.txt, and inside there we specify our Python version as 3.8.6. It is not what I'm currently using. I'm on 3.8.2, but we can do that to be safe. Not Python, it's Python. Alright, and then the last file is the requirements.txt file. So I went ahead and pasted in the requirements that we need for application, but if you don't know the requirements that you need for your application, inside your command line you can just go ahead and type pip freeze. Now this is what this is going to do is it will check through your Python packages, and it will list out all the packages that you are using inside your machine. Now what I recommend is setting up an environment or a virtual environment so that you can use the packages that are specific to your application. So go ahead and extract the packages that you are using for your application, but as well I'll make sure to link this requirements.txt file inside the description section below. Alright, so that now we are good to go. In the last video we saw how we could link up the Next.js frontend with the backend using this simple script that scrubs for the source and the href attributes inside our HTML file and changes them by appending this static command at the beginning there, which was nice. So make sure you have also this app.py file, and I'll make sure to leave it linked up in the description section below. Inside our package.json file, we need to just add a little script right here, and I'll call it deploy, and I'll make sure to put a comma there. And if we go to open a new tab, if we go to gist.github.com, and then here's the gist file, you can also find it here. Now this is the command that we need. I'll copy that, make sure it's the terminal. So what that will do is we are going to start by exporting the output that is created by running the next run build command, which is not there. So That will be next run build, then and we'll export the output, move the output to the static folder, and then run our script against the static folder. Alright, now what we need to add also inside our package.json is this engines key or engines, and under that we need to specify the engines that we are using for our application, our Next.js application. Basically that is the Node version and the npm version. Now you can get that by typing node-v, which is version 12.6.3. make sure you copy that. So we'll do node, then paste it there, and also do npm, which is npm-v. That is 6.14.4. Copy that. Under that, I'll do npm and paste it there. So make sure npm is on top, comma there, and release that comma, so that now everything is beautiful inside the package.json file. And I'll close off all that. The dependencies that we are using, I'm using Chakra UI, React Slick, and Slick Carousel for the items that will be displayed inside a carousel. I'll make sure to start the dev server so that you can see how that looks like. Now, to start off with, we have this catalog app in our backend, and inside the backend, we have the API that will be querying the data from. Inside our serializers, we have this simple product list serializer that returns all the information about our item model. Inside the URLs, we have only one route. Inside the views, this is the home view. We specified the permission classes as allow any using the product list serializer, and the query set is a get method on all the objects inside our item model. For the model, it is a simple model. You have 4 fields: the title, the price, the discount price on the image, and the string method of that model. We're just returning the item itself. So we need to make sure that inside our settings, installed applications, we have that catalog app, and then we need to make sure that we have course headers and REST framework, since that is what we are using to build our API endpoint. Now make sure you include the white noise middleware and also the course headers middleware, and set course origin allow all as to true. That will just allow any endpoint that is querying the data to your backend to go through. Alright, so now that that is out of the way, the media folder is created when you run the application for the first time. So let's go ahead and run the application and see how everything looks like. I'll start the Python server, so Python manage.py run server, then create a new instance of the terminal and run npm run dev. That will just run the development server on port 3000, and in development we are keeping both separate before we can merge them and serve everything on port 8000. So give it a sec. So now that everything is compiled successfully, we can go to the site itself, and we have our items which are serving. Then we have this little sleek carousel. If you can refresh for you to see the carousel, hopefully it works, and now it is working. So we can go back to the code, and since everything is working out correctly, inside the pages folder in our Next.js application, it is just a simple function home. We have this const of settings, which is referencing the sleek carousel settings. Then we have the box. We've set the width to 100 viewport width, which is essentially the whole of this div right here. And the box component is essentially the div. Inside the box component, we have the heading, and then we have a simple divider, and then we have a slider, and we are mapping through all the items that we are getting by querying this get static props method, which is a method in Next.js version 10, where we can fetch our data server side, and also we have revalidation, which is also inspired by SWR, which is stale while revalidating. Now this will fetch the data, every new data every 1 second. That is what this revalidate one means right here. So we're fetching this product list URL, and if we check, that is inside our constants. So inside here we're exporting 4 constants. One of them is the localhost API, and then the endpoint. So basically the endpoint is a combination of the localhost and API URL, and our product list is /API/product list, and that is set inside the catalog API URLs. So we are basically just replicating that so that we can serve that on our front end. So now that everything looks to be working out correctly, let's create, or let's merge up these two so that we can serve them on one, or on the port 8000. So first things first, I'll start by deleting the .next folder there, and after that, inside the package.json, as in the last video, we saw how we can create this deploy script. So I'm just going to run npm run deploy, and it will take care of everything. So npm run deploy, and hopefully we didn't make any typos and all that, which we did. No such directory as, and this error is stemming of our, if you can check our package.json file, this should be npm, not next. So npm run build, and that should work just fine right now. And after that, of course, everything, bring up the last command, npm run build, and that should get underway with creating an optimized production build. Export the output, and it will run our script against the static folder. So as that works out, we can go inside our auto-dep and make sure that our template directories are set. So os.path.join, we can join our base directory with this static directory. That is nice. And then at the bottom there, we can make sure that our static files directories are also set, which is nice. So close the settings. And then once it's done, we can start, or we can try running our application on the local host. So seems like we ran into an error, and if we check this file correctly, we are getting this error, connection refused error, and that is simple because we have our server, our backend server, which is down. So let's do python manage.py run server. Sorry for this many errors that are popping up. So that our server is up, we can run that command again. That went on quite successfully. We can click or close that instance there, and since we are on localhost port 8000, the server is running, we can just go ahead and go to port 8000, and hopefully we should see the same site, which is nice and beautiful. So that now that everything is right for deployment, we can hop over to Heroku and also create a new application. And one of them, let's spin up a Heroku dash auto dash deploy, not deploy. Is deploy available? Heroku, let's do Heroku git auto deploy. That is available. I doubt that is taken. So let's create that up real fast. And right out of the blue, we need to go inside the configuration variables, and we are going to disable underscore collect static, one word, and we'll set that to 1. Make sure it's disable collect static. Add that as a new configuration variable. Under the build box, we'll specify Node.js. Node.js, save that, and also add another build pack Python since we are dealing with a Next.js Python application. And then configure SSL, you need to be on paid dynos to configure that. If you go to the deploy tab, we'll use Heroku Git, or we can just use the Heroku CLI for that. And those are the commands that we'll need to paste inside our application to get started. Now, so that now that our application is up and running, we'll need to set this URL inside the allowed hosts, and that will be the name of your application .herokuapp.com, and we'll need to replace that. Heroku Git auto deploy.herokuapp.com, and also you need your local host just to be safe. If you save everything, now this should be our new local host. If you go to our utility functions, I'll export a new local host that we'll be using, paste it there, save everything. I'll get rid of that, and that should take care of everything for now. Debug is set to true. Everything is looking fine for now. Hopefully we didn't make any errors. Now, another thing that we need to specify inside our package.json file is the post install script. So post install, after everything has run, we need to run not next but npm run build, and yeah, so we can do npm run build, or since npm run build, let's do npm run deploy. Npm run deploy will take care of everything. All right, so before we start committing our application to Heroku, let's start by collecting our static files. So python manage.py collect static, one word. That will just create a new folder, static files, with all our static files, including the .next and the admin static files, which is nice. So 188 static files copied. All right, and then since everything looks to be cool, we can start by authenticating ourselves using the CLI by logging in. So Heroku login, and I'll just put them side by side so that you can use the commands side by side. As you can see, it's asking us to press any key to open a new tab in the browser for us to authenticate ourselves. Once we click that, we should be able to return to the CLI and we should be logged in as we are. So I'll clear the terminal right there, and I'm going to start by initializing an empty repository. Done. And then I'll set the endpoint right there. Remote is set, and there's actually one file which is very important that we haven't created, which is the .git ignore file. One of the files that we need to ignore are our node modules for sure. We can also ignore the .vs code, and the pages, public, static, all these files, we also committing them. And then the package -log.json, let's just commit everything for now and see what we have. So I'll save the git ignore file, go back to the view that we had, and after that we are going to add everything, and that will take a while because of our static files that we have just compiled. Give it a sec. So that went on. Then after that, we'll need to commit. So git commit dash init. We have made our commit, and then the final step is to push to the master branch. So that can also take a while depending on the size of the application, but it should be pretty fast, which it is. Then after that, we can just do git push Heroku master, and this can take a while depending on the size of the application, and because we are doing the push for the first time, but once it's done, I'll get back to you. So we've run into a bit of an error with our deploy script. We can start by editing that. So npm run build. Then for the deploy command, we can start by getting rid of that. And then we'll just run this output on the dyno itself and see what we get. So I'll close that. And we are going to try to commit everything and see how it works. So now that we keep getting our application being rejected when we push to Heroku, let's do it in a little different fashion way. So what I'm going to do is inside our Heroku application, under the build packs, we are going to just deal with one build pack, which is the Python build pack. I'll remove the Node.js build pack. That can take a sec there. So what this will do is Heroku will only recognize this as the Python application bit of it, which is served on localhost, which is what we want. And if we go back to the deploy, everything is fine. We'll just go through the steps as well. If we go to our package.json file, everything seems fine. But for now, since we are not doing the Node.js build pack, we can also get done with the post install. We can leave the engines key with node and npm right there. And after that, let's close off that terminal there. Make sure our utils specify the URL and it is actually listed in our allowed hosts so that we don't run into any errors as we do this. Hopefully this one works. And what I'm going to do is, since we have this static folder with the index file, and what I'll do is we are going to log in again. So Heroku login. We're going to authenticate ourselves first. Press any key, and that might take a sec. So login, and we should be logged in. Nice. And so I'm going to add everything. That went on pretty fast. As you can go through it, Python app detected it. Python app was detected, then it installs the requirements using pip, compresses it, then it releases our version. So we can open our application using this Heroku command, Heroku open, to view the application in our browser, and hopefully everything works out correctly as we planned. And boom, we have our application which is live. So we have the Next.js application being served on a Django backend, and everything works out correctly as planned. We have the carousel working out. So what you're going to do is to start to set up the automatic deploys. Now we can start by creating a new repository. Now here the fun part begins. So what I'm going to do is to get rid of the .git folder that I created when we deployed the application to Heroku, and then we'll start by initializing an empty repository, git init. Now that that is done, we can just go back to our browser and refresh our repository, and we should have all our files. Now if we go to Heroku, we close off the logging tab, and now that we are on the deploy tab, we're going to use a different method. One method is setting up the Heroku pipeline, and this is because you can have two applications, the staging application and the production application, such that the staging application should pass continuous integration for it to go to production. You can also use continuous integration and delivery tools such as Travis CI, whichever works for you, do it best. All right, so let's actually copy that repository name and we'll paste it there. Heroku git auto deploy. We'll search for it. We'll connect to that repository. Now make sure that that repository is not empty, because if it is empty, you're not going to see these options. So the branch that we want to deploy is main, and then here is the magic. We are going to do or to enable automatic deploys, and it was as simple as that. So every commit that we do to the main branch, it will reflect to our Heroku application. This is what I mean. Let me show you. If we go to our pages application index, then let's say we do sample ecom auto deploy site. Let's do sample e-commerce auto deploy site. We're just changing the title for now. We can change also the remote endpoint to see if it works. So we have the pages file which is modified, and after that, remember the deploy script that we created, which is right there. We can go ahead and run npm run deploy. So that runs successfully. Now make sure that inside your constants you have https in front of the URL that you had put before, depending on how you set up your URL, or you can just put in the raw URL inside your get static props and everything should work out as correctly. So we can start by pushing everything to GitHub. So once the push is done, we can check our Heroku, or if we refresh our GitHub, it should see, or it should display the environment which is building, which is it isn't. Let's go to the overview, and right there we should see the build process which is taking place. Now this takes a while before it refreshes on the GitHub side of things, but you can be sure that it is working. As you can see, Heroku git auto deploy, which is our Heroku environment, is pending. So now that the build process is succeeded, as you can see right here, green succeeded, we can go to our repository and refresh, and the environment should be active. Refreshing environment is active. So if we go to application and let's say open up, we see simple e-commerce auto deploy site. Now this is how you set up auto deploy with GitHub and Heroku. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if there's any other method that you can do this conveniently, make sure you let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.